Hey guys, how's it going? It is me. It's 1:45 a.m. on Thursday night, Friday morning, and whew, excuse me. Um, I wanted to share a few articles with you. Real quick here, this is an article from Bloomberg.com talking about how the Wuhan area is not experiencing any more new infections. So, the Chinese province at the center of the coronavirus outbreak reported no new infections for the first time since the pathogen emerged more than 2 months ago, marking a turning point in an epidemic that's infected almost 81,000 Chinese. Um, so that's good news because obviously it shows that um, isolation because they pretty much shut that whole province down, and so that gives hope for what we're doing here in the United States and elsewhere in the world. It creates hope that it will have the desired effect. So that was good to read. Um, I'm going to kind of do good news, like, I don't want to say good news, bad news, but I want to try and kind of share both sides of the coin. This is a professor at New York University, a business professor guy, and he had some interesting comments that I wanted to share with you guys.
Well, if we don't do it, we literally going to have riots in the streets and people going to the supermarket and literally taking over everything. And
He's talking about this is all in regard to the $1,000 a month proposal. Um, I think the government's talking about doing it modified. Originally, it was $1,000 a person. Today, I heard that it's $1,000 for adults and $500 for kids. So if you're a family of four, two parents, two kids, that would be 1,000 per adult, $500 per kid. So a family of four would be $3,000. He's talking about here what would happen if we don't do this, because people are losing their jobs and the unemployment process takes time, and if your employer is not taking care of you and you have no money and you have no food, people are literally going to start rioting in the streets. That's what he's saying, and that's terrifying, right? So the government just giving everybody money is not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but it's probably better than rioting and people starving to death, right? So we'll set aside for the moment, we'll set aside the economic integrity questions. Um, Integrity is the wrong word, because it could be misapplied towards integrity of doing the right thing. This is more an integrity of the financial system. Um, but again, we'll put that aside for a moment. I do think that it's in giving cash to the consumer is better than um, putting temporary holds on things like no mortgage payments or no tax or no this or no that. Those things are shutting down the economy. Whereas if you inject cash, if you give cash to the consumer is still spending that money, and it keeps the wheels of the economy moving. That way, when the COVID crisis begins to subside, if the economy wheels are still moving, albeit a little bit slower, as long as those economic wheels are moving, once the COVID corner is turned, we should see a much faster recovery. So let's listen more to what this gentleman has to say here.
stealing it because people are going to start supermarket and literally taking over everything and stealing it because people are going to start starving. There are tons of people I know in New York, everybody that is in hotel business or in a restaurant or in a bar or in the gig economy, they tell me they have no income. Their income has collapsed to zero. And as I said, almost half of Americans have less than $400 of liquid cash to deal with an emergency, $400. So either you give $1,000 and that's not even sufficient, you're gonna have to do more targeted for the people who deserve it. But if you don't start with $1,000, you're gonna have riots in the streets and people going and taking over every store. We're gonna have violence in the street in the next few weeks. That's what's gonna happen.
Wow. Nouriel, it's true.
You're going to have violence in the streets. That's what's going to happen. Crazy, but true. You know, I think if, earlier he talked in this video, we don't need to listen to the whole thing, but earlier he was talking about how, ideally you'd have, people at different pay scales with different levels of liabilities. You know, you give somebody that makes $20,000 a year, $1,000, that's 5% of their income. You give somebody that makes $100,000 a year, $1,000, it's 1% of their income, and it's typically the more you make, the more expenses you have, right? And so he's saying ideally you would have this mechanism where you figure out how much everybody gets. And then you allocate funds accordingly, but he's like that process would take forever, and we don't have that kind of time. So it's just a blanket injection into the economy to keep those wheels moving and to prevent there from being chaos in the streets. So desperate times call for desperate measures, I suppose, is the category that falls into. This is a cool article. It's from about a week and a half ago, March 10th. It's currently March 20th. But the top 25 recession-proof cities in the U.S. So it was earlier on in the COVID crisis, but this was definitely a response. They're talking about recession-proof. This article was definitely written in response to the COVID crisis. And I thought it was really cool that Idaho was up here at number 12. So we made another top list. In this case, it's the cities least likely to suffer in a recession. So Frisco, Texas, number 1. Cedar Rapids, Idaho, number 2. Plano, Texas, Denton, Texas, Austin, Texas, Sunnyvale, California, Lubbock, Texas, lots of Texas stuff, Cary, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Round Rock, Texas, and then Boise, Idaho. And I think in this list they had a total of 25. So we're right kind of in the mid portion of that range. But the article just talks about all the normal stuff. Talks about most recession resistant, where is it? Employment, housing, and social assistance are the 3 categories that they looked at. So I thought that was a pretty cool article. BusinessInsider.com, top 25 recession-proof cities in the U.S. The next few articles I have here are all talking about, this is a CBS News article talking about first patients injected with potential COVID-19 vaccine in clinical trial. This week, the first patients in a clinical trial for potential COVID-19 vaccine were given shots, marking a key step in the global race to find a cure. Kaiser Permanente Washington Research Institute in Seattle developed a COVID-19 vaccine in record time and started administering the shots on Monday. It is a potential vaccine, right? So these are trials. It's not official, but they've got one that they're working on in Seattle. This one here is talking about another potential treatment, which is hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine, which is a malaria drug, which is why we have a mosquito here. But apparently, this malaria drug, hydroxychloroquine, does function reasonably well as a COVID-19 treatment. It is among several drugs already approved for other indications that the president wants the FDA to look at as possible COVID-19 treatments. The drug is currently approved for malaria and also rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus something, which is its main use in the U.S. Therefore, it's available to be described off-label. So what I really liked about this is that it's an existing medicine, so we know what its side effects are, and it's already available. They can produce it, so it's not something brand new. So that's really cool. This is something about another vaccine trial that's beginning in Britain next month. Researchers hope to conduct animal tests next week and safety trials as early as next month. A massive effort is underway to develop a UK vaccine for coronavirus within months and make it available to save lives before the end of the year. So we have the Seattle tests that are being done. There's the malaria drug that's being tested. The UK is working on a vaccine. Here's one that's talking about, like this right here. It said, okay, I'll start from the beginning because it's in the second sentence. Heat Biologics is the name of the company, disclosed Tuesday in a financial filing that its COVID-19 vaccine candidate had been added to the World Health Organization's draft landscape of 41 candidate vaccines. 41 candidate vaccines. So there's, we covered, I think, 4 of them here. But there's 41 candidate vaccines, so that's obviously a good sign, and kind of makes you cautiously optimistic. I didn't really realize that there was, obviously people are working towards a vaccine, but I had no idea that there was 41 candidates, in the mix already. So that's good to know. I know that process takes a while, but it is definitely good to know. California today pretty much put the whole state on lockdown. Everybody's to stay home. I think it just was released a few hours ago. Stay home, COVID. California issues a statewide stay-at-home order in the coronavirus fight. This is 5 hours ago. The order, which takes effect Thursday night tonight, asks residents to leave their homes only when necessary. And I think it's actually against the law. I think he made it a misdemeanor. I guess it doesn't really matter, but it is against the law to leave if you don't have a actual reason to be out. I remember reading somewhere. That was before. misdemeanor and punishable by fines and imprisonment. So essentially, it's and that's pretty serious, you know. If you leave your home without, you know, if you're not I think there was a list of like certain things that you're allowed to do. Yeah, this is earlier. That's not the one that we're looking for. There was one. This might have been it here. All Californians, nearly 40 million people, 40 billion people, have been ordered to stay at home except for when it is absolutely necessary for them to leave. That is crazy. And it's in fact until at least April 19th. That's for that Los Angeles order, which is the same. The state's order does not have an end date, and there it is. It includes exemptions for public safety and healthcare operations, as well as other essential services, including laundromats, grocery stores, and restaurants that offer takeout delivery. And that's it. If you're not working at one of those places or going to one of those places, you can go to jail if you're in California. So wow, that's crazy. I suppose understandable, but crazy nevertheless. Anyway, that's it for tonight. Just wanted to share a few things with you. I was excited to learn about all the vaccines in the works. We all already knew mostly about, you know, Boise being a great place and people wanting to move here. That's not changing. It's going to continue to drive the market and enable the market here in Boise to sustain this mess. Earlier today, I did a video talking about our numbers. Our numbers are still looking good. And as bad as it is to just flood the economy with money, I think it's worth it. I think you have to do it. I don't think there's any choice. So it's bad that we have to do it, but it would be way worse if we didn't. So keep those wheels turning, keep people fed, prevent riots in the streets, maintain social order, and get through it. So that's my thoughts for the day. Real estate stuff is still happening. It's just strange. On the real estate side, it just feels like none of this is happening. I've talked multiple times about how it feels like there's two worlds: the normal world that we've all lived in for the past 10 years, and then this world where everything's going crazy. And those two worlds just kind of coexist side by side with each other. It still feels that way for me. Today felt really normal on the business side. Lots of questions coming in. How do I word this in the contract? And hey, can you help me comp this property? And regular stuff. So be careful out there. Maintain social distancing. Practice good hygiene. When you meet with clients or customers, don't be afraid to ask them in advance of meeting with anybody. Hey, have you traveled recently? Do you have any symptoms? Are you ill? Do you have any symptoms of illness? Regardless of what they say, don't. It's okay to say, hey, I'm not shaking hands right now. Somebody said, we're gonna, even fist bumps are like, still the hands. Somebody said, we're gonna elbows are the new thing. Boom. So you just throw it up. Do the elbow. I guess there's not a lot of germs on your elbows, which makes sense. So, elbows, everyone. Have a great night. I will talk to you soon. Any questions at all about COVID-19, the economy on a macro level, the economy or the market here in Boise, and of course, any real estate questions, I'm always happy to help. So, talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot. Good night.